Now you look at social media, what are the most watched speeches? It's where the presenter is vulnerable.
Though you don't have to be a therapist to be empathetic, to be a good
I am
listener.
saying is that if you never get in trouble, if you never had challenges, that means you're probably going too slow or you're not going at all.
A coach is not about looking at the past. A coach is about how to move forward.
I know it's easier said than
Yeah.
done, but it's something, if somebody can master doing it, even for one day, I consider that day a day that he lived.
Get Gel, the wisdom for your well.
Yes, Reb Shulam, what's doing? What do you have?
Good
You
morning,
wanted to talk
Chaim.
about something?
So I had somebody who came to me very recently who was just very kind of out of sorts, not a person who's, middle-aged, been working, but is having a lot of struggles with his job and trying to figure out where to go next. And he mentioned to me something that he said, I've been meaning to come and talk to you for a long time, but I just couldn't get up the courage to kind of expose myself to somebody. And, it occurred to me that that's something we really haven't focused on, Chaim, is that we talk a lot about people, about what services we offer and how we can help people. And we say, just like, just come and make time and come and talk with us. But it's not unusual for people to not to have a difficult time building up that confidence or that courage to come and speak to somebody. That even that step alone, as simple as it may seem, or as with all the different ideas that we're sharing, and it seems it would be so attractive, still people have a hard time because that means they're making themselves vulnerable, they're exposing their weaknesses, they're sharing with somebody, things that they feel they'll be judged on. There's all kinds of reasons why somebody would be hesitant from just picking up the phone or going on the computer and setting an appointment. But I think that is so important to address how to just get over that hump and make that initial step that will ultimately lead to much better things and help the person get into a much better place. What are your thoughts on that?
Don't you think that it can also come from a lack of commitment to change? Could be sometimes that the person would really want to change, but
Right.
they're not ready to change, and they think if they take a step in the direction of reaching out, it's gonna probably cost money. It's probably gonna make him have to do certain things that he's really not ready to do, and it's gonna put him out of his comfort zone. So he would rather, this is very subconscious. I'm not talking about conscious,
Right. Right.
subconscious, and he would rather have another reason why it can't work than once he's gonna come, maybe you're gonna pull the rug out of his, under his feet, and he's not gonna have any excuse.
That so yeah, you're focusing on one aspect, which is a kind of a fear of making a commitment. I was focusing on a bit different from what I picked up from this person, which was a fear of just being vulnerable, a fear of being exposing the fact that he's not been successful, a fear that he's going to be judged. Making commitments, of course, that's always scary, and people don't like to sign up for a gym membership because they're afraid of the commitment it's
Yeah,
going to
but
require.
look at this. He's afraid of being judged by whom? By one person. Which person? Somebody is doing this professionally. So you know very well that most probably one of the reasons that he's not succeeding, he's not getting where he wants to get, is because he's always afraid of being judged by everybody else as well. And it's
Right,
always standing in the way. He's, instead of being busy of focusing on what he needs to do in order to make it, he's busy on focusing of if am I going to be judged or not.
right. So, but I'm just curious to know when when you're meeting new people and they're sharing with you their concerns or even people who haven't yet come to you, like how do you address that to make them feel or to know that this is a judge-free zone, that you're sincerely here to help them, and that they should not be concerned that whatever they share with you is going to cause you to think differently about them or is going to make them feel weak. Like How do you go about dressing then?
Yeah, you make me feel like a therapist now. And could be I am a therapist there, and could be you're a therapist. We're all therapists. I mean, I have to be the therapist for myself, for my clients, and then I also work with mentors, with other people that help me grow. And in the past, I worked with people, and now I work with people is the number one thing. Don't assume that because you know something. Most of the answer that I have to my questions, most of the answers I need to my questions are within me. It's
Right.
not in the other person. I just reach
Correct.
out to the other person for one reason, because sometimes if the other person will do a good job asking the right questions, I'm gonna find the answers within myself.
Right.
That's one of the reasons I reach out to a mentor.
No,
I need to
and that's
trust the
it.
other person to be confidential, and of course, I'm gonna have to reassure my clients that I work with that listen, I'm confidential, and it's very, very normal. Do you think a dentist, somebody would assume that a dentist assumes that I don't have any cavities in my teeth? I mean, why would I come to a dentist to begin with if nobody has
Right. Ex
cavities? Well, why would he
That's an
be in
excellent,
business?
excellent. Right. Excellent. And I want to pick up on something you said as well that, we're not therapists and that's not our role. But when dealing with meeting when you're meeting with other people, it always involves an element of sensitivity of and nothing is black and white. It's not we're not robots. And part of the what the services we provide is the ability to interact with other people and being good listeners. And we talked about being how important it is to be a good listener. But Reb Chaim, I always like to think about when we meet every week, what insights can we get from the parsha or whatever. I mean, there's always something that's relevant, and it occurred to me, this week's parsha is all about this subject as well. Klal Yisrael functions by working with each other. We our strength is by actually opening up to one another. That's what gets us through all the challenges, whether we're individual challenges or communal challenges, we open up to each other. We view each other as somebody that we work together through our relationships with one another, and that's really our key to success. And of course, that requires us to open ourselves up to other people, make ourselves vulnerable. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to 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 share our concerns with other people, our weaknesses, whatever, because that's really the key. That's through opening up and allowing other people to facilitate our own thoughts and so on is how we can ultimately get to where we want to be.
Yeah, and I just want to tell you, I'm not sure that you realize that the episodes that we're recording is not always going to be posted in the week that we record it. Sometimes we
Right.
record it before or after. So,
Fair enough.
I appreciate when you say this week's parsha for me, but for some people it could be a different week's parsha, and could also
Fair
be
enough.
that you're going to listen to it a few weeks or a few months or a few years down the road. Um,
Fair enough. Okay.
Shulam, I think I'm witnessing in front of my eyes the last few years something amazing, and I think you're gonna agree with me. You look at when I don't know, 20 years ago or so, what was the lectures that people listened to a lot online or not online? It was mostly professional speakers, people who knew how to articulate a good speech and how to articulate an idea. That was mainly the type of speeches that people love to listen. Now you look at social media, what are the most watched speeches or the most
Mhm.
watched lectures? It's where the presenter is vulnerable. The presenter doesn't come across like some Mr. Perfect that he never had any challenges. One of the reasons that some people don't listen to us because they think we're perfect. I think we have to show our vulnerable side more. But it's okay. The point is that nobody, if somebody assumes that we're Mr. Perfect, then they're going to feel a distance and they're not going to want to listen
Right.
and they're not going to want to come. But the second people understand, I don't know about you, Shulam. I think you grew up, you had everything going for you. But I had a lot of trouble in my childhood. I had a lot of trouble in my adulthood, and I still have trouble. I'm dealing with stuff. It's not about it's not about being perfect or not being perfect. It's about where do you want to go, and you focus there. And that's what you do. That's the
Right.
point.
Right. Absolutely. And I've had my very fair share of challenges growing up and continuing until today. I don't know, anybody who claims that they don't have challenges or that they don't have stressors in their life, I don't care how successful they may seem. They're just not being honest because everybody, there's nobody who coasts through life.
I want to
And
tell you,
yeah,
I want to tell you something, a cute story. I was a few years ago, many years ago, probably, I don't know, 15, 20, 15 years ago, I would say, ish, 15-ish. I went to a lecture. I went to a conference called the Million Dollar Round Table. Million Dollar Round Table is an organization for life insurance and financial professionals, and they come together like once a year. They have like an annual meeting. They have amazing presentations there, and it's like an international organization for successful life insurance agents and other financial professionals. So I remember sitting in this huge hall. I mean, thousands of people from the entire world get together. I'm sitting in this huge hall, and the presenter gets up on the stage. I don't remember the name. I just remember it was dark. The room was dark. You couldn't see it. You can only see your immediate neighbors, but you couldn't see the entire room. But I think he was able to see because the lighting was set up in a way that he could see, but it's a way that they set up the lighting so you can focus on the stage and you get and see the presenter. Anyway, so he gets up on stage and says, "Let me see by a raise of a hand who ever got a speeding ticket here." And then, of course, almost the entire room raised their hand. And then he said, "To those of you who did not raise their hand, can I ask you something? Can you start moving a little bit faster?" So it's an interesting. People think, I don't want to move fast because I'm going to get a speeding ticket. I'm not saying break the law. I'm not saying any of that. All I'm saying is that if you never get in trouble, if you never had challenges, that means you're probably going too slow or you're not going at all.
you're not going it out right. No, fair enough. We all have, and there's no question, Chaim. We all. I can say about myself that I find it just as difficult to make myself vulnerable and to open up to people, because of course I like to present myself as somebody who's got it all together, who's somebody who doesn't have any problems like we all do. And when I am facing trouble and I do need help, it's of course it's a challenge to like open up. But I've learned over the years that that's the only way I'm going to move forward is taking ownership over whatever challenges I'm facing and just do what I have to. And usually that includes speaking to somebody that can help guide me and guide my thinking process to get
So
me
let
where
me
I need
ask
to
you a
be.
question. When you go to that person that you want that person to help you, what would you want that person to do? Do you want that person to have empathy, understand you, give you a listening ear, and then tell you for the next 3.5 years, come back every week, and I'm gonna feel again what you are going through, and I'm
Right,
gonna be with you on your one pitch, or you want him to tell you, Shalom, listen, get your act together. I don't want to say all the words he's gonna say. You know what to do.
right. And
Roll
I
up
think
your
it
sleeves
depends.
and go do. I understand the past. We'll talk about it. Come back in 3 months. You tell me what you have done, and I'm gonna have
Right,
empathy with you on the past. But get your act
right.
together and start doing. What would you want that person to do?
So, sometimes you want somebody just to just commiserate with you. It all depends on the situation, quite honestly, Chaim. But I think that the aside, no matter what, and no matter what I'm looking for, I think the basic elements that I'm looking for is somebody to be empathetic, because if we're empathetic with people that are talking to us, they're going to be more inclined to open up. If we just shut them down and say, just get on with it and don't bother me anymore, then they haven't been helped. So empathy, I think, is a basic aside. I think number two is I want somebody who has got good listening skills. I don't want somebody who's going to just talk at me. I want somebody who's going to listen to me. And somebody's going to give me an opportunity to share what's going on and be able to just be tuned into what I'm saying. And number three, I would want somebody who's not going to tell me a menu or a recipe and give me all their advice. I would want them to facilitate the conversation to help me come to my own
Right.
conclusion of what I need
But
to
all of
do.
that is a therapist, right?
No, not at all. Though you don't have to be a therapist to be empathetic, to be a good
I
listener.
agree. I agree. I agree. But I think it has to come to a point very, very soon in the conversation for somebody to, at least by me, if somebody wants me to uh, what's the right word? If I want somebody in my life to help me, it has to come very quickly to a situation where he's gonna flip it on going forward.
Well, of course,
What
that's
are
why
we
they
gonna do
come to
going
you.
forward? I
Of
understand the only
course.
trouble, yeah, it's terrible. But what are we gonna do going forward?
Right.
So you
Absolutely, Chaim. They're not coming to you or to me if just because they want a therapist. You're right. They're coming to you or to me because they want to get tachlis. They want what we have to offer. No question. But I think in order to get to that, you can't just open the door and say, "Okay, sit down. I'm going to tell you what to do." You do have to create a relationship, and the person that you're dealing with, your client, whoever it is, has to feel like they're being listened to. And you, the only way you can honestly help them is to truly listen to them, so you can identify how you can be of service. So I think I just the reason I say this is I think sometimes people jump to stage two before stage one. They think I have all the answers. I'm going to tell you what to do. Here's the recipe to follow. Now get on with it. But oftentimes that's not going to really enable the person you're dealing with to be able to move forward because they do need somebody who will just listen to what they're going through, have some empathy, and be clear on how you can indeed help them.
I agree with you that it's important to have empathy and do all the steps that you mentioned. I will though say that I think nowadays people are suffering more than they should suffer because therapists usually take it too far. Okay, I'm not
Okay.
saying everybody, but therapists usually take it very far to have the empathy and justify all their problems and focus so much on the past. I agree, it's terrible. People are suffering like crazy. I agree with that. But for me at least, if I'm gonna live in my past, I'm not gonna be able to. I'm always gonna be in the past. In order for me to
Right.
have good therapy and good chizuk, so to speak, I need to have accomplishments. I need to go forward. I need
Right.
to see that things are going in the right direction. And I need to start having checks and more assets than liabilities.
You're 100% right, Hyman. You're touching on a very important point, and that is that today coaching has become a big industry, and everyone wants to be a coach, but there's a lot of lines blurred that people who are going to coaching all of a sudden think they're therapists as well, and clients want to use their coaches as therapists as well, and it's so important to draw the line between the two. I do have a background in therapy. I actually have a degree in a certain type of therapy, so I do have experience with that. And one thing that is clear, the job of a therapist is to help address trauma that the client has gone through, and they're trained in being able to deal with that and being able to lead the client through that process. A coach is not about looking at the past. A coach is about how to move forward, like you said. And sometimes moving forward does indeed involve getting an overview of the past so you can have context, so you can understand the situation. But the job of the coach is not to provide a means to for the client to deal with any trauma they experienced. The job of the coach is to help the client to get from point A to point B and to facilitate that process. Okay. And we have to keep those lines so clear. So when a coach is talking to a client about the past, the only reason it should be brought up is in order to provide context and in order to be able to help that client move forward to where they want to be. But the moment the meeting with the client becomes the focus is on the past and trying to address the past or trauma or whatever, then you step into a therapist realm, and and unless you're trained for that, unless that's the purpose of the meeting, that's not the right place to be. So I 100% agree with you. But even within the coaching sessions, there does have to be an element of reviewing the past because you need that context
Of course, you
in order
always
to
need that.
truly help. Exactly. But I fully agree with you. And I think it's a problem that you know, people who are not trained therapists attempt to provide therapy, which is just, it can lead to so many bad outcomes. And also, the client has to understand that their coach is not a therapist for them either.
I tell you something very interesting that I heard a while ago. Somebody said that our generation, when I say our generation, I mean your generation, my generation. We are we go to therapists because we were raised by parents who didn't go to therapists.
Right.
And then our children's generation will have to go to therapy for being raised by parents who always went for therapy.
Right.
So both are
Yeah.
traumatic. Well,
Well, yeah. I mean, listen, therapy is all of a sudden also. I mean, listen, I'm not here to discuss the the whole therapy, but I did. My father was a survivor, and of course, he experienced terrible things, but he never sought help for that. He did the best he could. Did it have an adverse effect? No question. But you know what? We all come from all of our situations are nobody's perfect. No one, no one had a perfect situation. But for sure, what we need to do is to learn how to be focused on going forward. Um, and that's really, what the discussion about is today. And all I'm opening up with you, Chaim, is that I think in order to get a person to get to that point where they recognize or they're prepared to talk to you or to me is we have to be able to provide a platform that allows that person to open up, and it's going to pay. It's very likely going to be painful, but I'm not here to provide therapy for what all the trouble or the problems he may have. The one thing I can do is listen to him and be able to empathize and think, okay, I understand now the situation. How can we work together to get you from where you are to where you want to be and to address the different obstacles that are getting in the way? That's much I can do. And
100%. I once read somewhere that a very, very successful person, he was meeting somebody and asked him, "Can you tell me the secret of your success?" So he said, "Sure, come down to the parking lot underneath the building. I'll show you." So he comes down to the parking lot and he goes to his car and he tells him, "Go read the plate number of my car." So the plate number was next. So he says, "I'm always living with this. I'm always reminded, next, 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 always focusing on what do I need to do?" Bob Proctor, my late mentor, we spoke about him in the past, I think. He used to
hmm
say all the time, whenever you get into trouble, I get to work. For some people, it's going to Lahavdil Torah, distracts them from the trouble. For some people, it's getting to work. The main thing, get busy with something positive. Don't
Absolutely.
you don't have to stay in the negativity too long. Get busy with something positive, something productive, something that you can accomplish, something that can put you back in a good place. And
Right.
this is where my mind goes all the time. I know that some
Right.
people, it's very hard to go there because they're so pained about some past trauma. And I'm not gonna discount anything. And I don't understand everybody. And I also deal with my own stuff. But for
Right.
me, maybe it's a distraction. I'm admitting maybe it's a distraction and it's not coming from a healthy, I don't know, from a healthy place, could be. But this is what gets me going. Whenever
Right.
I'm getting in a place that, I just keep going, keep going, keep going,
Right.
focus on the good.
And I'll mirror that. You know, of course, we all have bills to pay, and we get all we all get overwhelmed, and we've got a lot of stress and demands on financially or our time. Just recently, I just had a few different things coming in all at the same time, where several bills, and it's just like, how am I going to manage to pay all this? It's like, and I was feeling kind of overwhelmed and just run down, and I reminded myself that I have to do what I tell my clients to do, which is sit down, just over take a view of the big picture and take ownership over this. Don't think, how am I going to manage? I had to switch myself to, what am I going to do to make this work? And I sat down, mapped out things, and just started thinking, okay, well, if I move money from this account to that account, I can do this, I can pay that later. I had a plan. That plan, whether I stick with it or not, I don't know. But the mere fact that I just sat down and made that plan already took away that stress, that feeling of overwhelm, because I felt I was in control, and I was able to move forward and get to sleep.
Right.
and you
But
know, and
Baruch Hashem, you were able to move money from this account to that account and map it out. Some people, they have this issue and they don't know from where to move money. They're stuck,
right,
nothing to do.
right,
Even in that case, I'm not saying it's not a problem. It's a difficult situation and you have to deal with it. But sit down for 15 minutes, half an hour, however long you have to, try to deal with it. when you finish sitting down on this subject, regardless if you came up with a solution or not, leave it behind and go focus on what you need to focus. And then maybe tomorrow come back again for 15 minutes. But my point is, don't take it with you forever. You have an
Right.
issue, leave it behind. You had a
Right.
difficult day at work before you open the door to greet your wife and children. When you get home in the evening, have like a storage room outside that you can dump all your issues there, and you walk in, you forget about it. That's
Right.
something so important. Instead of bringing everything, all the past, bringing with you forever, focus on the future. I know it's easier said than
Right.
done, but it's something, if somebody can master doing it, even for one day, I consider that day a day that he lived. If he can't, then I don't know if I can call it live. Maybe tomorrow
Right.
you can have a good day.
Right. And I just to add to what you're saying, is that if part of that plan is to open yourself up to somebody, that's also a plan. That
Absolutely.
taking that step that already will help you to get control of the situation.
If you have that somebody, that's amazing. But try to imagine when you have this issue with your bills and then you go to somebody and he's going to charge you in order to speak to you, then you have another bill.
Yes,
You don't
I
always have this
understand.
somebody. So it's very,
Right.
you don't want to you don't want to always be dependent.
Right.
So it's good to learn some independence.
Absolutely. 100%.
Okay, you know, let's next. Let's talk about next. Anything else you wanted to add
Next.
to this session?
No, I think that was what was on my mind primarily. What do you have to add?
I have so much to add because but I don't want to go to my past now. I don't want you to bring me back. How much time you have? You have time for a therapy session for me? Maybe, you know what? That would be a good idea. I think, Shulam, that could be a very good idea. Every time we finish a podcast, let's stay together offline, without the
Okay.
recording on, and let's do therapy for each other. Are you in?
Fair enough. Absolutely.
You gonna have a lot of time to listen to me? I have a lot to share.
Uh, I think I could probably share a lot as well.
Okay, let's finish it with this now, and we'll speak next week, Mr. Shan.
Gewaltig. Skeuch
Hatzlocha.
Chaim.
Get Joe the wisdom for your well. Get Joe the wisdom for your well.